Okay, how are we doing? Good. Great. Good. 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 Any questions or comments?
Oh my God, I
Oh, okay. Pull the toes back toward your knee. Yep.
It's okay.
Okay. Any other comments?
I went hiking and I didn't stretch.
Uh,
I went.
Comments, questions, anything? Simple, 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 simple. Simple. Only way we can screw it up is make it complicated. And that's okay too, because after a while we'll get tired of making it complicated and give up, and then it's simple again. And actually it was always simple all along, kind of, underneath that. The being, the presence is always simple. And anything we're doing complicated is just up here at the level of thinking. And, oh, try this, try that. It's like a fish, like, how am I gonna find this ocean? Try this, try that, the whole time you're in the ocean. And after a while you give up looking and you realize, oh, I've been here all along. Just relax into it. So much compared with what people so often think meditation is, concentrating, trying to create some kind of state and trying to be mindful, whatever that means, and it's just so much easier and so much more fun. So it's always good to remind ourselves that it's good to do this every day, dip into it every day. Good to set up a time at home to do it around the same time every day, just so that you make sure you get to it. And it doesn't have to be long, something 10, 15 minutes. Those of you who've been doing this for a while, sitting 10, 15 minutes, maybe you've been finding naturally it just, tends to become more and more like 20 minutes, half an hour, something like that. And if not, if it hasn't been doing that and you've got the time, maybe just sit here a little longer. Just bask in this for a little while longer. And I always think it's a good idea to, if you can, if you don't, if there's something you need to get to, then set a little quiet alarm, but otherwise, just, forget about the time. When you open your eyes, you go, oh, okay, that was half an hour or whatever, great. Yeah, Beth?
Just say, for some reason, the presence today, we were kind of halfway through and I realized, oh, are we starting now? I had, from the point I got here, I was there, and it felt so good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's such an interesting question. Are we starting now?
Yeah, I know.
Starting what?
I know.
Ready, go. Right. The clearer we become on the, even to say simplicity is the wrong word. It's not even simple. If we say simple, it sounds like, okay, there's this thing that you do that's not complicated, but there's not even a thing you do. I mean, there is a difference between meditating and not, and the rest of the day. There is this choice. There is this intention. Okay, for this time, I'm just going to rest. Yes, this presence is always here. This presence actually is always here, because this presence on the deepest level is always I. That's why I can't get away from it. And I don't have to try to create it, and I can't destroy it. But during the other 23 hours of the day, quite rightly, we choose to put our attention to engage with other things. Now those other things are all taking place within that presence, within that silent spaces will. But we choose, because life requires it, practical life, to engage with these different things. Okay, I have to work out this thing, I have to have this conversation, I have to do this task, that's fine. The difference between that and meditation is simply that now this is a time when we're sitting, and every time we find ourselves starting to engage, as we will out of ingrained habit, we realize, no, there's nothing for me to engage with, and we let it go again and again. And those of you who've been practicing for a while, you know that becomes that new habit, that other way of functioning, rather than being caught up in compulsive engage. Over time, over practice, more and more, we don't, that comes up less. And when we do get engaged, it's not as deep, it doesn't seize us as much. More and more, it's just this ease. And then more and more, that ease starts percolating out into the other 23 hours. And that's when it really starts to be fun, doesn't it? Yeah. And more, that even as we're engaging in these other things, it's not that different. Right? It's just stuff happening within the silence. And that's exactly why we say, oh, have we started? Do we start? We start? We never start, and we never end. So yeah, it's a very, very, very delightful insight, isn't it? Good. What else?
How many times did we keep the eye closed?
How long?
How long?
How long? Right.
I don't realize.
Isn't it interesting that it's hard to tell how long we had our eyes closed?
Yeah.
Okay, and that's why I'm not going to tell you. Okay, because there's a reason why. It's like, was that 10 minutes? Was that an hour? Right? The reason that it's hard to say is that time only happens up here on the surface of the mind, on the thinking surface of the mind, on the level of the phenomena. As we naturally, without trying to do anything about it, as we naturally just sink more into that silent presence, there's no time down there. I say down there, but that's just a metaphor. It's here. There's no time here. There's only eternity. One wonderful teacher that many of you have heard me cite before, Rupert Spira, says, time is what eternity looks like when viewed through the mind. Right? Time is what eternity looks like when viewed through the mind, through the thinking mind. So eternity is this, where we're living all the time. All the time. But usually we're engaging it through the thinking mind, so it feels like time. Now what just happened, and I'm always delighted, and you know what? When people come here for the first time, they almost always ask that question. I love it. So you're right on track. And what that tells me is great. Everything is that you just very, beautifully just let go, and you're right there. Your practice is A-okay. Because you just naturally sank into that place of no time. Which more and more, as we were saying, more and more we're living in that, through continued practice, more and more we're living in this silent presence all the time. We're living in this timelessness all the time. That's a paradox, and yeah, we live that paradox. It's kind of time and it's kind of eternity. It's both. It's doing everything we do, and more, in a funny way, it's like nothing's happening. And we're playing our roles. Okay, I'm Dean, you're Beth, you're Yafa, you're Elodie. But at the same time, more and more, it's like there's no one here. It's just this presence. Good. What else? So, I mentioned at the beginning that Yafa and I were just on this wonderful 5-day retreat with ADYASHANTI and Asilomar, so we want to share a little bit of that. First of all, Asilomar, how many of you have ever been there?
Where?
Wow, a lot of you. Asilomar State Park, yeah, Asilomar State Park and Conference Grounds. It's in Pacific Grove,
Right near
California.
Monterey, right next to Monterey.
Yeah, on the Monterey Peninsula. And Pacific Grove happens to be where our daughter and grandson live. So we actually went up and saw them for Thanksgiving, and then drove literally a mile and a half to the retreat. And we're used to, like, you know, going across country for retreats, or going to India or Europe for retreats. So to go a mile and a half for a retreat was pretty great. But Asilomar it's on some of the most beautiful coastline in the world, just gorgeous. And you know, there's only 3 places in the world where they have these Monterey pines, these beautiful trees. And this,
Torrey pine. It's called Torrey pines.
Torrey pine.
Torrey pines.
okay,
Those might be different.
No, I think-
those
No,
are.
they're down in San Diego and there.
yeah.
The other two
Well, there's
places.
also, yeah, the Monterey cypress.
Yeah, the
Okay.
the Monterey
Yeah,
pines
yeah.
are unique. They're just
Yeah.
there, and they're
Right.
1 or 2 places in Mexico. They used to be on hundreds of miles of the coastline, but this is what's left. And there's these beautiful sand dunes that had been denuded. They'd been taken over by invasive species and just, you know, sand. And for the last 25 acres of it has been restored very beautifully. They brought back the native species and rebuilt the sand dunes, and then built these great little winding boardwalks that go, so you can walk through these beautiful dunes with the migrant seabirds and so forth without disturbing them. And you can do it at night in the dark, because you know you're not going to get lost. And every night, actually, when the last meditation ended at 9:30, when it was time to go back to our room and go to sleep, we both wound up drawn by the sound of the crashing tide, and it was really crashing. And just walking out there and seeing the sea under the waxing moon crashing against it was just great. So that was the place, and you were in this lovely little cabin, and the food was really good, too good actually.
After Thanksgiving.
Yeah. And it was 5 days of silence, and silence is golden. It is so delicious. Adya gave, he led a guided meditation every day, plus there were several group sittings with them. There were about 300 of us there. And every day he gave a talk during the day, and then dialogues, Q&A in the evening. So if you got called on and you came to the mic and asked your question, fine, but that's all the talking and stuff.
Yeah, dialogue doesn't mean like talking to each other. Dialogue meant someone asked a question and he answered.
So it wasn't
That's all.
totally silent. I mean, he was talking to you.
Yeah, he was talking to us, but you're not talking to anyone. You're not making eye contact. You're not gesturing. You're not writing notes. You're not reading books. And he's really good about laying it out. He doesn't let anyone take notes in the lecture hall. And because this happens, and I find this sometimes when I'm giving workshops, people are sitting there taking notes, and I'm thinking, they're gonna walk away with a lot of notes, but they're missing the thing. They're missing the presence. It's like they're getting the shifted music, they're getting the notes, but they're not getting the song. So he just says, no notes, and great, and done. And don't read books. He says, don't even read my books. Yes.
But even, so then when you went to your cabin.
That's what I wanted to ask. You didn't say hello, good night,
No.
morning?
No.
You guys didn't.
No.
You didn't
No.
look at each other's eyes either?
No.
No,
No.
I didn't think so.
Why? What's to see? I mean,
what's to
I
see?
look.
What's the tell?
I love looking in my wife's eyes, but I can do that
So
anytime.
separate beds, everything?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
why
separate
were you in
beds.
the same room?
But you know what?
Well, because it's less expensive to
Yes,
have
yes,
doubles.
yes.
Yeah.
No, actually, we've
No,
been
like
in
how-
retreats when we
Yes.
can get singles, and if
Yeah,
you can get
yeah.
singles when it's not
Yeah, yeah.
more expensive,
Yeah,
then
yeah,
we
yeah.
do that. Because
So
the whole point
it's-
is you're in your own
Right.
inner world.
Yes,
You
the point is that you're settling into that silent presence pretty much all day. You're
It's
becoming more and more
life-changing.
familiar with
It
it.
really is.
Yes, if you haven't done it, it is life-changing. We were, but, you know, I mean, at this point, Yoff and I were professionals.
I
We,
know.
we were on a retreat once in Italy, in this little villa, and we were just crowded in with like 50 or 60 Italians and us, and I think one other American, and we actually had this tiny bed that was right off of the dining room, and the Italians were smoking everywhere because they're Italians, and the Italians couldn't keep silent because they were Italians, but the food was really great because they were Italians, and we had just this one bed. I don't think it was even a king. It was
Oh no, it was like a twin.
it was like
There
a twin
was-
bed. They
yeah.
were, and the whole week that we were there, we never looked into each other's eyes. We were just totally in our own space. It's great.
Yeah,
So you never feel like
that's the point.
that's being ignored, being ignored.
Being
Yeah.
Yeah, because when you're together, at least as a couple, I don't know, if like, sometimes I need help with something, so I cannot say, can you help me? Or,
And you figure it
or I
out.
say, can I help you? I
But-
have nothing. You
Yeah.
No, that's the point though, is
yeah,
you can do that
Oh my God.
365 days a year.
right,
It's-
right.
This is special
Yeah,
time.
whatever difficulty you think there would be, guess what? People do this all the time, and it turns out not to be difficulty.
No, it's not.
So that's just that. But what's interesting is that our minds can come up, and some people more than others, with all kinds of stories about, oh, why I couldn't do this, and why it would be, I would need help with this, I would feel ignored, I would feel this, I would feel, you know, you only feel ignored if there's an expectation that you're supposed to be paid attention to. If we've all together dropped that expectation, then we're not being attended to, we're not being ignored, we're just being. We're just all being together.
So you never heard about, I know about silence meditation that
Mhm.
take usually 10 days. It's, what is it called?
It could be anything. I know people who've been in silence. It could be anything. I know people who've been in silence for years.
Yeah, there is a whole monks places that I know even in my country.
Mhm.
But I heard from a friend of mine who is social work, kind of that worked with, anyways, she said that for some people, and I'm wondering if you heard or you met people that because of being in such an environment that actually have a nervous breakdown,
Oh,
No.
something like that.
No.
You never heard?
No.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
I have a
Well,
question.
that's what she
about-
told me.
Yeah, I have a question about the retreat.
Mhm.
So, like, what did you do? I mean, I know there were periods of meditation during
Right.
the day, right? But what
Right.
else?
What was your daily routine?
Yeah, did you do any physical exercise, like go on walks?
Yeah,
Did you-
yeah. I
Were there
walk.
seminars or,
I'm sorry?
were there different like seminars that you would talks or?
So
No,
the
no,
schedule was every morning there would be a meditation offered at 7:30 a.m.
Mhm.
Then there was breakfast from 8 to 9, and then there was a teaching at 10 to 11, and then there was a meditation at 11:30, and then there was lunch from 12 to 1, and then there was a meditation at 2, and then there was a meditation at 3:20, and then there was a meditation at 4:10, and then there was a meditation at,
Oh,
and
no,
then
that-
there was qigong at 5.
Oh, qigong.
Yeah.
Oh,
And then
yes.
there was dinner from 6 to 7, and then there was the question and answer teaching from 7 to 9
From
every
8
night,
eight.
and
So
then
you're busy.
7 to 9, and
So-
then
right.
lights out at 10.
Right.
And then you
You
can
have a
go
great
on, you can
memory.
walk on those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She remember all those
And
things.
you could do what you wanted. I mean, for me, my routine on all retreats that I go on is after lunch I take a nap.
Mm, mhm,
And then I wake up, and I don't go to the meditation right away, I take a walk.
mhm.
And then I go to the meditation at like 4. Sometimes I got up early enough for the 7:30 a.m., sometimes I didn't.
Mm, mhm.
Yeah, and you know, it took me a few, and I've been going on retreats since I was 17 years old.
Wow.
You know, so it's been good
Wow.
10 years
20
now.
years.
Right. And at first, you know, it took me a couple of years to figure this out. I would go like, oh, okay, oh, I gotta do,
Right,
I do-
gotta
gee,
do it.
I spent too much time taking a walk here, getting back to my room. I have to, you know, accumulate more meditation. And of course, that attitude completely defeats the purpose. Like, it's like, hurry up and relax. And after a while, I got the idea, which is, no, it's Beth, it's back to your insight again. When do we start? It's always starting. It's never starting. It's all meditation. It's all just hanging out in the silence. And taking a walk or sitting with the eyes closed, calling it meditation or calling it walking on the sand dunes, more and more it's all pretty much the same thing. And that's sort of a model of how your life becomes. It's sort of like, you know, meditation is sort of like the little first sprouting, the little germination of the seed. And then retreat is like, okay, now we put it in the greenhouse. You know, it's under this special environment where we don't have to go to work. Oh, no phones, no computers. So we're completely, oh, so great, didn't see any damn
What was
news for
going
5
on?
days. And so that's like being in the greenhouse, where the little sprout can grow into a sapling in this protected situation. Then we come back to our lives out here in the world, and it's kind of like transplanting that sapling back into the little more rugged, more challenging environment. You know?
And also in the teachings, you're getting so much
Yeah, you're
richness of the guidance into deepening your practice that you carry that into your day too. You
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
register, you know, it's processing inside of you.
Yeah. And Adya, so let me say a little bit about Adya. He is just a wonder. ADYASHANTI. That's a Sanskrit name which means primordial peace. It's you know, they're from the start. It's the peace that's there always without anyone having to construct it. It's what we were just resting in our meditation. That the name he was born with is Steve. You know, he's an American guy, you know, a white boy from Northern California. He's 57 years old. You can find plenty of his stuff online. He's a guy that did a lot of meditation and worked real hard at it for a while till he figured out to stop working, and as everyone sooner or later has to figure out, and really became awakened. And you know, Yafa and I have had the great luck of being hanging around with a number of teachers, and a few of them that you can just really feel, just being in the room with them and then hearing them talk, that, oh yeah, that they're not speaking theoretically about awakening. It's not like someone, you know, pointing to the map and saying, well, over there's that mountain, and that they're talking to you from the mountain. Yes?
Well, is it like a lecture? Do they come with a theme? Do they come in every day with a different
Yeah, he
sermon,
came.
or what is it?
Yeah, he came in each in the morning talk. He seemed to he had an idea of what he wanted to talk about, and then in the evening, which was the dialogue, you know, he'd just call on someone to come up to the mic and whatever they asked about. And to me, that was really the most interesting, the most lively, and to see what people and some, actually a lot of the people there seem to have been practicing for a long time and to have some very advanced questions. You know, a lot of them, so to speak, I mean, not theoretical questions, but that they were really having a lot of kind of awakening themselves. And, you know, so it's you know, it was great. And his skill in dealing with, I mean, you know, after you hear him deal with 3 or 4 of these, you realize anything anyone's going through, any kind of unfolding of their consciousness and how that unfolds in their lives, you could put them in a mic in front of him and he would just, because his way of dealing with it is he doesn't tell you, okay, you should do this, you should do that. Oh, that's wrong. Oh, that's right. Just the more I watched him, the more I realized he does this beautiful thing of, because of where he is watching from, because he is watching from what in Zen they call Buddha nature, which means all of our nature, which means from that primordial silence, from that presence. Because he's someone who, to be awakened really just means you're fully in the value of that all the time. And you know that that's what you are. It's not anything, there's no distance between you and it because tag, you're it. Right? And that is, and once you fully experience that, you know that that's the solution to the problem. Whatever you thought the problem was. You thought the problem was this, you thought the problem was that. Of course there's stuff out here that has to be attended to on its own level. But the feeling of, I heard someone say once, I forget who they were quoting, but I love this, that they, supposedly it's written somewhere that a fully awakened, a fully enlightened person can do anything except see life as a problem. That it's just, you don't do that anymore. It's from here. So when you're seeing Adya there, you see him just coming from there, speaking from there, and hearing people's conundrums, hearing people's questions or what difficulties or what they see as difficulties from where he is, where there's no difficulty, and just kind of reflecting that back to them, and just gently, most saying they're saying, yes, oh yes, I know, yes, I understand, and just kind of leading them kind of Socratically to see more and more. You see, he just sees that wisdom in them and just kind of helps pull it out. Yeah.
So these askers, they're not asking about personal problems, they're asking about awareness or how to...
Oh.
Well, what it's, the thing is, the thing is that, this awakening unfolding within our lives is, it's kind of where the personal meets the transpersonal. And I'll give you an example, because I asked one question, and I did manage to get called on. And we actually managed to get up into the front row one night, which was really nice, getting up close, and I managed to get him to call on me. And what I said was, I feel I've been very fortunate in this life, and I'm just living in one of the most beautiful spots in the world. I'm kind of like living in the Deva realm, that's the so-called, in Buddhist mythologies, the heaven realm. I'm living in heaven here, so it's just very fortunate. I said, about 4 blocks away from me is where the hell realm starts, where the homeless encampments are.
Right.
And I told him that I used to love to cite, and actually those of you who've read my books, I've got this in 1 or 2 of my books, there's this wonderful verse from Shantideva, Buddhist sage, who said, always look at other people, other sentient beings, as if drinking them in with your eyes, and thinking, only through them will I attain Buddhahood, only through them will I attain awakening. In other words, it's not just some separating yourself out, it's that awakened compassion in the true sense of compassion, which is not just some pity, but true compassion, feeling with, is what the word compassion really means. And I said to him, and I just used to cite that, and I can't do it anymore. I can't do it anymore because what I find is I'm getting angry. I get angry at these people. I get angry at these people, and I get and I get afraid. Right? Maybe some of you have experienced this, right?
Living here.
Yeah, yeah. And I told him I feel like I'm flunking the exam. You know? I feel like I'm supposed to, feel, awakened compassion, but what I feel is I want a bulldozer to come and take it all away somehow.
Dean, I was just having this conversation with a friend of mine.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always had like eyes of compassion,
Yeah.
and I ride my bike every morning on the boardwalk,
Mm-hmm.
and what I see and what I hear, it's too much.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I used
Exactly.
to always go when I'd go by anyone, I'd be like, saying something like they're my brother, they're my sister, and all this. And now I'm just like, oh my God, you can't even walk down this. We live right in the middle of everything, and it's really something.
Yeah.
And my friends and I have had that conversation that we don't have eyes of compassion anymore.
So how did he respond?
Yeah, yeah. So it's so I'm not alone in this.
No.
In this.
So what was
I
the
had the
answer?
same thing this morning.
Say again?
I had the same thing this morning,
Yeah.
going to do my exercises over at Muscle Beach, and this man that I've seen before was just crying so much
Yeah.
that I actually stopped my exercise and sat down and went into meditation and blessed him.
Yeah.
But he had a bottle, and he was drinking and crying.
So
and
you didn't
crying
get
and
angry,
crying.
you weren't
Yeah.
angry.
He lives in the
Yeah.
street.
Right.
Affects you emotionally.
So
Okay.
Can't even help it.
So this is what I presented to Adya, and I said, yeah, I just want some bulldozer to come and take it away. And I think he said where, and I said,
Yeah.
I don't know, just away. I don't care. So he looked at me, and he said, so this is what I feel knocking at the back of my mind. He said, I think you do care.
Yeah.
He said, I think I'm looking at someone who cares deeply. He said, I may be wrong. And I just suddenly I actually felt my voice catching. I said, you're not wrong. Right? And, yeah, I'm trying to remember exactly how we put the next part. But yeah. What he made clear to me was that I've been defaulting to the anger and the fear to keep myself from feeling the opening my heart to all that suffering. And it was so subtle and so just as soon as he said that, it's like I saw the whole thing clearly. And as soon as I saw the thing clearly, it was like there was nothing else I needed to hear. It was just being aware of what's going on is pretty much the ball game. And then it's just a matter of time. Then you see yourself doing that thing again, and you just, okay, now this may take some time, but okay, just drop that. Just know that you're doing that, and it becomes untenable. That artificial thing, that thing of that protecting yourself, that armor. So this is my assignment for myself. This is my homework after the retreat. Yeah,
I
Kathy.
have a question about Adya. You said, when you were there and hearing his speeches and whatever, like that he was awakened and stuff. You could just feel that.
Yeah.
So a couple of times I've been in large auditoriums and groups with the Dalai Lama years ago when he was younger. And it was also, people would send up questions on notes. And he would, so was it like maybe somebody like that? That kind of.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I just
Yeah.
wanted.
Yeah. Awakeness is awakeness.
Okay.
And and whether it's someone who's plugged into a tradition of like the Dalai Lama, and he's wearing robes, and you know, or you know, it's someone named some American guy. You know, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Awakeness, presence is presence. Awakeness is awakeness.
You can feel it, I mean, I-
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, you do, and especially when you see the interaction, you feel what's going on. Now, I think if you have it's easier to really have a clear sense of what that is if you've been doing some practice of your own. You know, because what you're seeing is that thing that you glimpse in your meditation, but you're seeing it, you know, walking around. You're seeing it on the hoof, as it were. You're seeing it, someone breathing from there and speaking from there. And also, when you're more familiar with it from your side, you're less likely to be fooled by fakes. And it is important to note that there are fakes. In India, there are people where there's this long tradition of people following gurus. There are people who set themselves up as these gurus who they build these multi-million-dollar empires, and they have, you know, the people who get in their way quietly taken off and disappeared, and they're never seen again, and they sexually abuse people and so forth. And so the more you're tuned into your own beingness, the more you know the difference. You can just see the difference between someone who's the real thing and someone who's just, you know, has some outer trappings.
Yeah.
Well, two things. One is I wanted to mention that also Adya mentioned, because people have talked about being concerned about what's going on in the world, and, you know, in reference to your question. And he just pointed out that, you know, when you are feeling frustrated or angry or anxious about what's going on around you, it indicates that you really care, that you deeply care. And those are the outer manifestations of that, but that, you know, as opposed to someone who just walks right by the homeless person or whatever, and actually doesn't even see them, you know? So it's like there's a big difference between, you know, that sort of frustration and anger and the same with, you know, in politics, feelings, etc. The other thing I just wanted to mention was, you know, also Adya, like Muji, they talk about what they see out in the audience too, like with every person who, well, not just every person, but I mean, you know, the phrase that Muji said, that Adya said, that I just wanted to share about what they see.
Yeah, this was maybe that same retreat we were on in Italy we were talking about, which was with Muji years ago.
But Adya said it too.
Yeah.
Adya said it too.
Yeah. So Muji's another teacher that we've been on retreat with a number of times, and one time on a retreat with him, I think this was in Italy. After seeing him deal with, you know, person after person, I finally got up and I said, "How do you do it?" I said, "How do you have the patience and to, you know, see us time after time just like missing it, and to just walk us through it again and again into getting us mired out of being mired in our misunderstanding, into seeing what's here staring us in the face, or really staring out through our face all the time. And you know, how do you do it?" And he said, I said, "I can do it because I see what you really are. I only see what you really are, not what you're always trying to convince me you are." And he said, "And because love is never tiring." And that just went. love is never tiring. And love love is not just a feeling. You know, people think of love as, oh, there's this special thing that with special people that we celebrate on Valentine's Day or something. What love is ultimately it's intimacy. It's the, you know, what is intimacy? It's lack of distance. And ultimate total intimacy is zero distance. You know, when we find, you know, I used to think I was a little wave over here, Dean that goes from here to here, and Fuding thought he was this wave, Fuding, and Beth thought she was this wave, Beth. And we all think we're these little waves separated from all the other waves. The more we sit down to meditate, just melt out of our waveness into our oceanness, and then we come back to the world, okay, I'm a wave again, but more and more I feel I'm just a wave that's just an expression of the ocean. And then more and more it becomes clear that, oh, all these other waves are just expressions of this same ocean. How far is the ocean from itself? How much distance does the ocean have from itself? Zero. That's intimacy, and that's love. That's love in the deepest sense. So, you know, so when these teachers, when the Dalai Lama or Muji or ADYASHANTI talks about love, you know, that's really what they're talking about. And all the great teachers, you know, I'm always very inspired by the words of Jesus near the end of the Gospels, where he says, love one another as I have loved you. Right? As I have loved you. Well, how did Jesus love us? Did he love people by giving them a box of chocolates on Valentine's Day? You know, did he love the disciples more than he loved other people? No, it's, and boy, that seems so challenging if you're trying to think of it as a special feeling. How can I have that highest, most ultimate feeling for everyone? It would be exhausting. And it would be exhausting if you're trying to do it on the level of feeling. But it's not the level of feeling, it's the level of being. It's being, and it's realizing what you be, and what you be is what all these other beings be, and we're just all in the soup together. How nice. So, may all beings swiftly realize what they be. May all beings swiftly realize the intrinsic boundlessness, the problem-free, unshakable, inherent problem-free nature of what they are, aka happiness, the true meaning of happiness. And thus may peace spontaneously prevail everywhere. And the Sanskrit traditional word for that wish. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino